It was a Sunday morning, and the light in our kitchen was the kind that made you feel like maybe today things could be different. Soft, amber light spilling across the countertops, casting a glow that made everything look almost perfect. If I didn't know better, I might have believed it. I sat at the wooden dining table, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, trying to warm up the ache in my chest. There was something off about today. I didn't know what it was yet, but I could feel it, an unsettling, familiar tightness in the pit of my stomach. Maya was sitting across from me, her back straight, eyes glued to her phone as if the world outside our kitchen didn't exist. We used to have these mornings together. Weekends were ours, our sacred time to sit and talk, maybe laugh about something, share a cup of coffee, and just reconnect. But now, there wasn't much of anything left. Just this heavy silence that stretched between us like a vast, empty ocean. She used to be everything I wanted. Maya had this fire about her. Confidence, energy, a kind of spark that made her stand out. Hell, when we met, I couldn't keep my eyes off her. We built a life together that most people would have envied. Our house was this sleek, modern masterpiece. Designed by me, of course, every detail carefully thought out. It should have felt like everything was perfect. And on paper, I guess it was. But the truth? I didn't feel perfect. I felt alone. I watched Maya out of the corner of my eye. Her raven black hair caught the sunlight, but there was something missing in her face. Her eyes used to be this vibrant shade of green, the kind that could hold your attention for hours. Now they looked empty, like they'd been drained of everything that made her her. Even when she smiled, it didn't reach her eyes. It wasn't just that look though. It was the little things. The late nights at work. The way she was always on her phone, texting someone, or more like avoiding me. The way she'd come home, exhausted but barely acknowledging me before disappearing into the bathroom for hours, fiddling with her makeup like she was preparing for something. Someone else. I tried to ignore it, tell myself it was nothing. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe it was just a phase. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. And I wasn't the type of guy to sit back and wait for answers to fall into my lap. If there was a problem, I'd fix it. Or at least try to. That morning though, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was holding my breath, waiting for something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Maya, I finally said, my voice cutting through the stillness. My hands tightened around my coffee cup as I felt my heart beat a little faster. She didn't even look up. I watched her, trying to catch her eye, but she was absorbed in whatever was on that phone. My patience was wearing thin. We need to talk, I said, my voice quieter, almost like I was afraid of hearing what I already knew. She let out a soft sigh, rolling her eyes as she slid the phone into her lap. About what? Her tone was dismissive, but there was a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Maybe. But mostly, it was irritation. I leaned forward, feeling the weight of the words before I even spoke them. About you. About us. Maya shifted in her seat, the air thickening between us. I had no idea how it had come to this. No idea how we'd ended up here, where every word felt like pulling teeth. I wasn't asking for much. Just a conversation. An honest one. But instead, I got silence. And the more I sat there, the more I realized I had no idea who the woman sitting across from me was anymore. It wasn't the first time I'd tried to talk to Maya about the growing distance between us. I had tried before, but each time she brushed it off, like it was nothing. She'd say she was stressed, or that work was just crazy. A few throwaway excuses that had started to feel like a script. But I wasn't buying it anymore. That morning, after I said we needed to talk, Maya finally put her phone down. I could tell she was annoyed, but I didn't care. My patience was running out. I wasn't about to let this go on any longer. So what is it, Rowan? She asked, her tone sharp now. You're acting like I'm doing something wrong. I could feel my jaw tighten. You don't think something's wrong? Maya, come on. You've been distant. You've been shutting me out. I feel it. My voice cracked a little, and I hated that. I hated how vulnerable I sounded, but I didn't know how else to say it. She looked at me for a second, like she was trying to figure out what to say. Then, with a sigh, she leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest. You're overreacting, she said, her voice flat, like she wasn't even trying anymore. You know how work has been. I've been busy. I'm stressed. Maybe you just need to chill out and stop reading into everything. I couldn't help but stare at her. How could she be so cold? I had seen the signs. Her eyes would light up whenever she got a text, but it wasn't from me. She'd step out of the room for long phone calls, always whispering, like she was hiding something. It was subtle, but it was there, like an undercurrent I couldn't ignore anymore. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know there's someone else, Maya. The words came out of my mouth like they had been waiting there forever, and the second they left, I felt this sick pit in my stomach. It was like I was already bracing for the impact. She froze. I saw her shoulders tense up, her lips pressing together in a thin line. And for a moment, just a brief second, I thought I saw something flicker behind her eyes. A flash of guilt? Panic? But it was gone in a heartbeat. Rowan, what the hell are you talking about? She snapped, her face flushing with anger now. That's ridiculous. There's no one else. I swear. But I knew. I felt it. There was no mistaking the way she was acting. The way she looked at her phone with that stupid guilty grin every time she got a message. The late nights. The distance between us that had grown to an unbearable size. I didn't need her confession to know the truth. You can keep lying, Maya, I said, my voice low and steady. But I see it. I see you slipping away. You think I'm too dumb to notice? You think I wouldn't catch on? She looked at me like I was the crazy one. Rowan, I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to stop. This isn't me, okay? But it wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't about whether or not she was willing to admit it. It was about me. It was about what she'd taken from me. Trust, love, security. I had given her everything. My heart, my time, my future. And she'd taken it all and pissed on it. I stood up, pushing the chair back so hard it scraped across the floor. My chest was tight, the anger bubbling up inside me like a slow burn. I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. I wasn't going to beg for the truth. She had already shown me exactly who she was. You know what, Maya? I'm done, I said, my voice barely controlled. I don't care if you admit it or not. I know what's going on. I'm not going to sit here and watch you tear us apart. She was quiet now, her eyes darting away from me, unable to meet my gaze. It was like she was waiting for the storm to pass, but I wasn't about to let it. I was done being the guy who waited for answers. Now, I was the guy who was going to make her face the truth. And she wasn't going to like it. The days that followed were like walking through fog. I wasn't the same guy anymore. I tried to keep it together, but something inside me had snapped. The man who used to come home after a long day, ready to share a laugh or enjoy a quiet evening with his wife, was gone. In his place was a man who saw only the betrayal, the lies. And the worst part? Maya didn't even seem to care. She went on, business as usual, getting ready for work, pretending everything was fine, leaving the house without so much as a glance in my direction. It was like we were two strangers in the same home. I was stuck in a constant loop, replaying every little detail in my head, trying to make sense of what had happened. How had I missed it all? How had I been so blind? I knew I had to confront her again, but I wasn't sure how. She wasn't going to admit anything willingly. She never had. And yet, every time I tried to get closer, she pushed me further away, each time more coldly than the last. One night, after another quiet dinner that barely resembled the meals we used to share, I couldn't take it anymore. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, piecing together everything that didn't add up. The late nights. The secrecy. The way she'd smile at her phone like it was some kind of secret code that only she understood. I knew it wasn't just stress from work. Not anymore. That's when I found the messages. It was late, around midnight, and Maya had already gone to bed, or at least I thought she had. I'd been trying to fall asleep, tossing and turning, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I needed answers. So, I did what I swore I'd never do. I grabbed her phone. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. The screen lit up as I unlocked it with the code I'd known for years. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but what I saw, it was worse than anything I'd imagined. There were texts, hundreds of them. From him. The man she'd been seeing, the one who had taken my place in her life. They were full of words I couldn't bring myself to read aloud. The kind of sweet nothings she used to whisper to me, now thrown around carelessly in a stream of messages. But it wasn't just the texts. It was the photos. The ones I couldn't ignore. She'd sent him pictures of herself, looking happy, like the woman I hadn't seen in months. Like the woman I used to know. There were pictures of her at work, in a restaurant, at a bar. Places she'd told me she had been, working late or with clients. And then there was the one that made my stomach turn. A photo of her in bed, her hair spilling over the pillow, smiling up at the camera. His hand in the frame. I didn't need more. I set the phone down, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so loud in my ears I could barely think straight. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the screen like I was waiting for something to change. But nothing did. The truth was right there in front of me. I wasn't just being paranoid. Maya had been sleeping with someone else. And she had been doing it for months. I stayed up all night, the weight of everything crashing down on me. My thoughts were a mess, a whirlwind of hurt and disbelief. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I couldn't. I wasn't sure what I would do, but I knew I couldn't sit back anymore, pretending like I didn't know the truth. The next morning, when Maya came down to the kitchen, everything was different. The air felt heavier. Like a storm was about to break, and neither of us had the power to stop it. She didn't notice me right away. She was too busy, as usual, looking for her keys, checking her messages on her phone like she always did. But when she finally looked up, I saw it in her eyes, the flicker of recognition, like she knew something had changed. I didn't wait. I didn't need to. I know about him, Maya, I said, my voice hard and steady, like a fist wrapped in velvet. Her face drained of color, and for the first time in weeks, I saw her genuinely startled. She stepped back a little, like she wasn't sure if she could escape what was coming next. Rowan, please, we can talk about this, she started, but I wasn't having it. Not anymore. No, I cut her off. We're done talking. You've already said everything that needed to be said. My voice trembled a little with anger, but I wasn't going to let it break. I've seen the texts, Maya. I've seen the pictures. I know what's been going on. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't feeling sorry for her. Not anymore. You thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you? I said, my voice a little quieter now, but still with that sharp edge. You thought you could keep lying to me, keep pretending everything was fine. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to explain, to apologize. But I didn't need that. I didn't need her excuses. You betrayed me, Maya, I said, my voice breaking now. The words felt like they were tearing me apart, but I couldn't stop them. You destroyed everything. All of it. And for what? So you could sleep with him? What the hell was so wrong with us? She stood there, frozen, not knowing what to say. And I was done waiting. The next few days, I hardly saw Maya. I wasn't sure where she went or if she was even sleeping at the house anymore. But it didn't matter. I had already begun to make plans of my own, because I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not after everything. Not after the lies. And especially not after what she had done to me. The silence in the house was unbearable. It was like we were both walking on eggshells, but the worst part? Maya wasn't even trying to fix it. Not that I expected her to. She had already shown me who she was, and it wasn't the woman I thought I married. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone colder, more detached. I spent the next few days pacing around, consumed with the mess of my thoughts. It felt like I was constantly holding my breath, waiting for something, anything, to make sense of this madness. I kept replaying the conversation, the look in her eyes when I confronted her. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was fear, pure and simple. She was scared of getting caught, but more than that, she was scared of losing the control she'd had over me for so long. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere in that mess of anger and betrayal, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She had taken everything from me, my trust, my respect, my sense of who I was, and I was done being the guy who just took it. I wasn't going to sit around being her doormat while she lied and cheated. The worst part, though, was that it wasn't just about revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted her to feel the way I felt, to understand the depth of the hurt she had caused. If she thought she could keep playing me for a fool, I was going to make sure she realized just how wrong she was. I didn't tell anyone what was going on. I didn't confide in friends or family. I didn't need their pity or their judgment. This was my battle, and I was going to fight it alone. Maya had gone to work that morning, same as usual. I didn't even bother asking where she was going or when she'd be back. I didn't care. I knew she wasn't coming back for a while anyway. She had already made plans to meet up with him, the guy she'd been sleeping with behind my back. I had seen the way she looked at her phone whenever it pinged, that excited little smile curling at the corners of her lips. She thought I didn't know, but I could read her better than she thought. I sat in the living room, staring out the window, trying to calm my thoughts. My hands kept twitching, wanting to do something, anything. The rage inside me was still there, bubbling just below the surface, but I was patient. I had a plan now. A good one. One that would make sure she couldn't just walk away from this. Around noon, I grabbed my phone and texted her. The message was simple, short, but it was everything I needed to say. Meet me tonight. I have something important to discuss. It wasn't much, but I knew it would pull her in. She couldn't resist. I didn't need to tell her everything was fine or that I had forgiven her. I didn't need to pretend that things were okay. By the time Maya came home that evening, I was ready. I had spent the last few hours getting everything in order. The house was dark except for the dim lighting in the kitchen. The tension in the air was thick, like it was just waiting to snap. When she stepped inside, I didn't even get up to greet her. I just sat there, watching her, knowing that the moment she stepped over the threshold, everything was about to change. She looked different, more put together than usual, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She was wearing a tight black dress that showed off her curves, and I could see the shift in her expression when she saw me sitting there, waiting. She hesitated in the doorway for just a second, like she wasn't sure if this was a trap or something. "Rowan." Her voice was tentative, but she was trying to mask the unease creeping into her voice. I stood up slowly, not breaking eye contact. "Sit down," I said, my tone flat. She moved toward the table, her heels clicking against the floor, but she didn't sit down right away. She hovered for a moment, as if she was trying to figure out what was going on. "Is everything okay?" she asked, the uncertainty creeping into her voice. She was trying to act normal, like we were just having another conversation, but I could see the cracks starting to show. "Do you think everything is okay?" I asked, my voice sharp now, cutting through the quiet. Her face paled slightly, but she stayed calm. "Rowan, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the phone. The one I had been waiting to show her. I dropped it onto the table with a quiet thud, and her eyes went straight to it. She froze. I could see the color drain from her face. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a split second, I could almost feel sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered everything. The lies. The deceit. The betrayal. "I know about him," I said, my voice low but cold. "I know everything." Maya's face twisted, like she was struggling to find the right words. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her eyes flicked to the phone, then back to me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw genuine fear. "You don't understand, Rowan," she started, her voice shaking now. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't what you think." I didn't let her finish. I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. I was done with her explanations, her empty apologies. I wanted her to face what she had done. I wanted her to understand the magnitude of the pain she had caused me, and the only way to do that was to make her see it, to make her feel it. "Save it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't need to hear it. I've seen the texts, the pictures. I know everything. And you're going to feel the consequences now." Her eyes widened in panic, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind, probably trying to figure out how to escape, how to fix this. But it was too late for that. The truth was out, and nothing was going to change it. "Rowan, please," she begged, her voice almost pleading now. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Please don't do this." But I wasn't listening anymore. I had already made my choice. And Maya was going to face the consequences of her actions. The room was heavy with tension. Maya stood frozen, staring at the phone on the table as if it could magically erase the truth. Her mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to speak but didn't know what to say anymore. It was the look of a woman who realized she had been caught, and not just in a small lie, but in the kind of betrayal that shattered everything. I didn't feel any satisfaction in her fear, though. Not at that moment. I didn't want her to beg for forgiveness. I didn't want her to try and explain herself. At this point, all I could feel was this cold, gnawing emptiness that had settled in my chest. Everything she had taken from me, every lie, every secret, it felt like a part of me had been ripped out. "Why, Maya?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. The hurt was still there, thick in my throat, but I needed to know. I needed to hear her say it. I wasn't even sure I wanted to hear the answer, but I had to ask. "Why him?" She shook her head, her hands wringing together in front of her. "Rowan, I don't know. It just happened. I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, but it was hollow. "You never meant to hurt me? Maya, you've been lying to me for months. You've been sleeping with someone else, hiding it right under my nose. You think I don't feel that? You think I didn't notice the way you were pulling away, the way you stopped looking at me the way you used to?" My voice cracked as I said it. I hated how it sounded, like I was still holding on to the hope that she could somehow make it right. But I was done with that. She took a step toward me, reaching out, but I stepped back. "Rowan, please." She started again, but I wasn't having it. Not this time. I wasn't the fool she thought I was anymore. "You don't get to do this," I said, my voice shaking with rage now. "You don't get to act like this isn't a big deal. You've destroyed everything, Maya. Everything we built. All the trust, all the good moments, everything that meant something to me, you've crushed it. For what? For some fling? For someone who doesn't even care about you the way I did." Her eyes welled up with tears, but there was no sympathy in me anymore. Not for her. Not for the woman who had broken me in ways I couldn't even describe. She stepped closer again, her voice almost desperate. "Please, Rowan, I'm sorry. I was confused. I shook my head. "Sorry? You're sorry? I've spent 7 years building a life with you, trusting you, loving you. And now you're sorry?" I laughed again, but it felt bitter, like a taste of metal in my mouth. "It's too late for that." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence between us. I could hear her breathing shallow and quick, as if she didn't know what to say next. But I knew. I knew what I had to do. I had spent the last few days thinking about it, planning it, letting the idea fester inside me until it was the only thing I could focus on. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this. "Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed, Maya?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. "To have everything you thought was solid, everything you built, just torn apart? I thought I knew you. I thought I could trust you. But now, I'm just a guy who's been played for a fool." She took a deep breath, her eyes not meeting mine. "I never wanted to hurt you, Rowan. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I was done with her excuses. I wasn't going to let her wriggle her way out of this. "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep running away from the truth. You've hurt me in a way I don't know if I'll ever get over. And now it's my turn." Maya looked up, her face pale with fear. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the side of the room, where I'd prepared everything in silence. When I turned back to her, my face was stone cold, the anger that had been boiling inside me now simmering with a chilling calm. "Tonight, you're going to feel the consequences of your actions," I said, my voice firm, like I had made up my mind once and for all. I wasn't sure what it would look like, but I knew I had to make her understand. She took another step back, her eyes wide. "No, Rowan. Please don't do this. Please. We can work through this." But it was too late. The damage had already been done. I grabbed the small black box I'd been holding onto for the past few days. I had planned every detail, every moment. I opened it slowly, revealing the object inside. It was the knife I'd bought months ago, the one I had kept in my mind every single day since I first found out about her affair. Maya gasped when she saw it, her body instinctively backing away. "What are you?" "I want you to understand," I said, my voice low, but sharp. "I want you to feel what I felt when I found out. I want you to feel the pain of realizing everything you thought was real was a lie. You destroyed us, Maya. And now you're going to feel that destruction." Her face twisted with fear, her breath quickening. "Rowan, no. Please, just let's talk. Please." But I wasn't going to let her talk anymore. Not now. Not when she had taken everything from me. I moved toward the table, where we had sat for years. Shared meals, laughed, planned our future. I took the knife, and with a controlled motion, I drove it into the surface of the wood. The sound it made was sharp and final, like the breaking of something fragile. Maya recoiled, her scream piercing the air as she stumbled back. "Do you hear that?" I asked quietly, my voice breaking through the chaos. "That's the sound of everything we had, everything you took from me. It's broken." She was crying now, her face pale and stricken with terror. But I didn't care. She had made her choice, and now I was making mine. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Maya's sobs were the only sound in the room, but I couldn't bring myself to feel anything for her anymore. There was no coming back from this. Not for either of us. I stood there, the knife still embedded in the table, and for the first time in days, I felt still. Not relieved, not satisfied, just still. It was as if the act of finally confronting Maya's betrayal had shifted something deep inside me. I had expected to feel anger or vindication, but instead, I was met with this heavy, suffocating emptiness. Maya was crying, her shoulders shaking with sobs as she backed away, hands covering her mouth. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of fear and regret, but I didn't feel sorry for her. I wasn't the guy who was going to step in and tell her everything would be okay. I had spent too long trying to save something that was already lost. "Please," she begged again, her voice cracking, barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Rowan. Please. We can fix this. We can fix us." I looked at her, but I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say anymore. She didn't get it. She didn't understand that there was no fixing this. There was no going back to the way things were. Not after what she had done. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, until finally, I spoke, my voice flat and cold. "It's too late for that, Maya. Too late for apologies. For explanations. You broke something that can't be fixed." Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't move. I couldn't move. "I gave you everything, Maya. Everything I had," I said, my voice low but firm. "And you threw it all away. For what? A few stolen moments? A secret affair with someone who doesn't care about you the way I did." She shook her head desperately, as if she could somehow erase what had happened. "I never meant for any of this to happen, Rowan. I never wanted to hurt you. But it was too late." The words didn't matter anymore. The truth was already there between us, hanging heavy in the air. I walked over to the table and pulled the knife out of the wood. The cut it had made was deep, jagged, and raw, just like everything that had happened between us. I held it in my hand, feeling the weight of it, the cold metal pressing into my palm. "You're right," I said, looking down at the blade. "You never meant to hurt me. But you did. You hurt me in ways you can't even begin to understand. And now, you're going to have to live with that." She was still crying, but her tears didn't matter to me anymore. I had spent so long chasing after her, trying to make sense of her distance, trying to fix the cracks in our marriage. But in the end, I realized that some things can't be fixed. Some things are too broken to ever come back from. "I don't know who you are anymore, Maya," I said, the words coming out in a whisper. "I thought I knew you. But now I don't know what we are." She dropped to her knees, hands gripping the floor like she was trying to hold on to something, anything. "Please, Rowan, don't do this. I love you. I swear. I love you." But I didn't believe her. How could I? How could I believe anything she said after everything she had done? I turned away from her, my back to her as I walked toward the door. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't love me the way I loved her. I didn't look back as I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack. I heard Maya call my name, but it sounded distant, like she was already fading from my life, like I was already walking away from everything we had once been. I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't care. All I knew was that I had to leave. I couldn't stand to be in that house for another second. Not with her in it. Not with the shattered remains of what was once my life staring me in the face. The door slammed behind me, and I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I don't know what happened to Maya after that night. I don't know if she stayed at the house, or if she left, or if she tried to put the pieces of her life back together. The truth is, I didn't care. I couldn't. What she did to me, what she took from me, was too much. I wasn't the man I used to be. I wasn't sure if I ever would be again. But I was alive. I was still here, and I was done. I was done letting her define my worth. Done letting her define me. I wasn't going to spend another day wondering what I did wrong. I wasn't going to spend another day holding on to something that was already broken. I didn't know where the road would take me from here, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes again. I wasn't going to beg for someone's love when they didn't deserve it. I wasn't going to wait for someone who had already chosen someone else. And maybe, just maybe, there was something better out there for me. Maybe, in the end, this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Maybe, I had to lose everything to find what really mattered. And I was ready for that. I didn't sleep much the night I left. I couldn't. My mind was too loud, too full of everything that had just happened. The house was still too fresh in my memory, too full of her, of what she had done. I ended up in a small coffee shop on the corner of some street I didn't recognize, trying to drown out the pain with a cup of bitter black coffee that tasted like it belonged in a hospital waiting room. It wasn't helping. Nothing was. I had no idea where to go from here. I was a man adrift. No home to return to, no wife to fix things with, no family I felt like I could reach out to. The emptiness in my chest wasn't something I could fill, not with coffee, not with a random bar, not with anything. The streets felt different too, as though the world had tilted on its axis and I was the only one left trying to keep my balance. The sun had barely risen, and the city was still waking up, but I felt like I was moving through it in slow motion, unable to find my footing. I spent most of that day walking around, thinking, letting my feet take me wherever my mind wandered. I wasn't ready to go back to the apartment. I wasn't ready to see Maya again. Not yet. I wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready. By late afternoon, I found myself sitting on a park bench, staring at a fountain that was surrounded by families, joggers, tourists. People who looked normal, happy, like nothing in the world could touch them. I envied them. But even in that moment, when it felt like I was completely alone, I couldn't stop thinking about her. About Maya. About the woman I had loved so deeply. The woman who had once been the center of my universe. It made me sick. How much I missed her. The way her smile used to light up the room. The way she'd laugh at my stupid jokes. The way we'd lie in bed at night, talking about everything and nothing, our futures stretching ahead of us. But none of that mattered anymore. All that was left was the wreckage she had left behind. All that was left was me. Broken, angry, and more lost than I had ever been in my entire life. I sat there for hours, the hours stretching into a blur. I didn't know what to do next. I had no idea how to move on, how to pick up the pieces of a life I thought I'd already built, only to find it shattered into pieces I didn't know how to put back together. Then, around dusk, my phone buzzed. It was Maya. Her name popped up on the screen, and for a second, I thought about not answering. I thought about just letting it go to voicemail, letting her try to explain herself. But something inside me, a deep, stubborn part of me, made me tap the screen. Hello. My voice was rough, like I'd been crying for days. Rowan, please, I need to talk to you. Maya's voice came through the speaker, shaky and desperate, like she was on the edge of something. Like she was already about to break. Can we just meet? Just for a few minutes. I don't know what to say, but I need to apologize. I need to fix this. I didn't answer right away. The ache in my chest was still there, but there was something else now, something I hadn't felt in days. A kind of numbness. I wasn't sure if I could face her again, not after everything. "I don't think you can fix this, Maya," I said, finally speaking. "I don't think you can fix what you've done." Her voice cracked, like I had hit her with something sharp. "I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you, and I will live with that for the rest of my life. But please, Rowan, just let me say what I need to say." I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to hang up, walk away, forget she existed. But something in the way she said my name made me stop. The way she sounded so broken. So far from the woman who had walked out of that house like nothing mattered. "Where do you want to meet?" I finally asked, knowing deep down I was only doing this for one reason. I needed to hear it from her. I needed to know if there was anything left to salvage, anything at all. Maybe I was hoping for closure, or maybe just the illusion of it. She gave me an address. A quiet little cafe across town, a place we used to go on lazy Sunday mornings when everything still felt right. I couldn't help the rush of memories that hit me at once. Too many of them. Too many good mornings. Too many days spent lost in each other. I didn't know if I was ready for this. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. But I wasn't going to run anymore. Not from her. Not from the truth. By the time I got to the cafe, the sun had set, and the streets were filled with that familiar golden light that made everything seem like it was tinted in hope. I walked in, feeling like I was stepping into a memory. The little wooden tables, the quiet hum of conversation, the soft clink of coffee cups, it all felt like it was from another life, one I couldn't get back. And there she was, sitting at the far corner, staring into a cup of coffee, her hands wrapped around it like she was trying to hold on to something. When she looked up and saw me, her face collapsed into a mixture of relief and sorrow. "Rowan," she whispered, barely audible. Her voice was trembling. "I don't know how to make this right. I don't even know if you can forgive me. But I need you to know, I never meant for any of this to happen." I didn't sit down at first. I stood there, looking at her, trying to figure out what to do next. My emotions were still a storm inside me. Hurt, betrayal, anger, confusion. I didn't know if I could even look at her the same way anymore. "Do you know what it feels like?" I asked, my voice cold, distant. "To give someone everything you have and have them throw it away for someone else? Do you know how that feels?" Maya's eyes welled up again. "Yes, Rowan. I do. I know I messed up, more than I can even say. I've been living with that guilt every day, and I hate myself for it. But I need you to understand. I never wanted to hurt you. Not like this." Her words hung in the air, but they didn't make it easier. No apology, no explanation could take away what she had done. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Maya," I said finally, the words heavier than anything I'd said in weeks. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And for a moment, all I could do was look at her, trying to find something, anything that could make this hurt less. But all I felt was the weight of the truth. This was broken beyond repair. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was only a few minutes. The air between us was thick, filled with things we both wanted to say, but neither of us had the courage to. I stared at Maya, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel anything except an overwhelming emptiness. She was no longer the woman I'd loved. She wasn't even the person I thought I knew. She was just someone who had hurt me in ways I couldn't even begin to unpack. "I don't think I can do this anymore, Maya," I finally said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "I don't think we can fix this. I don't think we can ever go back to what we had." She looked at me, her eyes pleading, but there was nothing left for her to say. She had already said it all. She had apologized. She had cried. She had tried to make me understand that it wasn't about me, that it was about her own confusion, her own mistakes. But it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. She had chosen someone else. She had taken everything from me. "I don't know if you'll ever understand," I said, my voice softer now, almost distant. "But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when I know what you've done. It's not just about what you did. It's about what you've become. And I can't be with someone who's capable of this. Not anymore. Maya nodded, the tears still streaming down her face. I understand, Rowan. I do. I've lost you. I can see that now. Her voice was barely above a whisper, and I could see the weight of it all crushing her. But I wasn't sure if I felt sorry for her. I wasn't sure if I could. I stood up slowly, my heart heavy in my chest. I couldn't look at her anymore. The woman I had once trusted, once loved, was gone. There was nothing left between us except the wreckage. Goodbye, Maya, I said, not looking back as I walked toward the door. My hand rested on the handle for a moment, the finality of it hitting me hard. But there was no going back. I couldn't stay. Not in that life, not in that relationship. I had to leave. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap to the face. It felt good. It felt freeing, but also lonely. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to keep moving forward. Maybe I was running from her. Maybe I was running from the past. But I didn't care anymore. I had to find something new, something that wasn't defined by betrayal. Something that wasn't defined by the woman I had loved. I walked down the street, the city lights flickering like memories that were slowly fading. There was a part of me that felt like I had just torn a piece of my soul out. But then again, maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the only way to heal. To rip it all out, to burn the bridges, and to walk away from something that could never be the same again. The truth was, I didn't know who I was without her. And I didn't know where I was going next. But I knew one thing, whatever came next, I couldn't let the past hold me back. I couldn't let her betrayal define me any longer. I didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in months, I felt like I had a chance to start over. A chance to rebuild my life, to find myself again. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find someone who would love me the way I deserved. Someone who wouldn't betray me. Someone who would cherish me, not tear me apart. And so, I kept walking. Into the unknown, into whatever came next. Because for the first time in a long time, I was finally free.